Lacerated wound. Give him another shot of morphine and take him to the surgical tent.
Yes, sir.
Put on another dressing. You'll be all right.
They found him in parts over his back. I guess they had to pull him out.
He can't walk, but we can't find a scratch on him.
Take hold of yourself, soldier. What's your name?
John H. Clemens.
Get that guy out of here! He's driving me nuts!
All right, get him out of here. Shell shock. Evacuate.
And now we have this patient here in our hospital 2 months after the breakdown occurred. The variety of neurosis which he exhibits is not an unusual one on the battlefield. Many errors have been made in his case. For one thing, his EMT tag is labeled shell shock. The Army choice of term is exhaustion. And this term will be used exclusively for all forms of neurosis in echelons forward of the evacuation hospital. The reason is obvious. Soldiers read their tags, and long involved medical terms serve only to confuse an already disturbed mind. Now, placing yourself in the situation of this medical officer at the clearing station, what would you have done for John Clemens?
I don't see what else the officer could have done. There seems no point in keeping a patient like this on the battlefield.
Any other comments?
Major, we're going to be busy out there with patients who are really shot up, and we won't have time to monkey around with guys like that.
Major, I'm a surgeon. It looks to me like this is a job for psychiatrists.
That soldier must have been a misfit from the start to break down like that.
The medical record shows that the soldier was a healthy, normal individual before he underwent the experience that caused his illness. High school graduate, played an end on the football team, had a creditable job in a Pittsburgh steel mill after he left school at the age of 18. In brief, he displays the picture of a typical American boy. And now he's sick, and unless we do something for him, he may remain sick for an indefinite period of time. Gentlemen, you are not requested to treat these patients. You are directed to do so. May I acquaint you with a few statistics from recent campaigns? The size of the problem will startle you. These figures from Italy seem to indicate that 20% of all the non-fatal battle casualties were not wounded. They were suffering from neurosis. In Sicily, the overall figure for the entire campaign was 14.9%. When you add up the easy and the hard days of the Tunisian campaign, you will find that 16% of all the non-fatal casualties were suffering from neurosis. In prolonged engagements where the going is really tough, we find that 30 to 50% of all men coming under your care in the divisional area are suffering from combat exhaustion. Gentlemen, that means that 1 out of 3, or even 1 out of 2, of all soldiers coming under medical canvas does not have a drop of blood on him. Now, don't get the idea that the American GI is the only soldier that develops neurosis. Parallel statistics of the armies of our allies and enemies show that they are faced with the same problem. You are members of the medical department, and to you is entrusted the care of all the sick. There are no specialists on the battlefield. If you say that you are a surgeon and can handle only the surgically wounded, you have failed in your mission. Out in the mud, you've got to be a medical soldier, and meet all comers. In the folder issued to you, you will find a copy of this chart depicting the various forms of neurosis: hysteria, anxiety state, reactive depression, and the terror state. This will act as a guide to us as we visit the wards, where we can observe actual cases. Ward, heat, hot! At ease, man. Will you hold this, please? You may be seated. Good morning, McKenna. How are you feeling now?
I don't know, sir. I'm afraid you'll have to give me up as a bad job. I'll never get well.
Oh, it isn't as bad as all that, is it?
I can't stop from crying like a damn fool baby. The blues, I guess.
You did pretty well before the war, didn't you?
I did all right, I suppose.
This man has an excellent background. He averaged $400 a month as an automobile salesman in Chicago. Why did they send you here, McKenna?
We got stuck out in Kasserine Pass. They had to send up reinforcements. And the new CO had no use for me. Thought I was a sad sack. I don't blame him.
Oh, you'll feel better in a week or so. Take my word for it. McKenna went through most of the North African campaign. The death of his CO, plus the loss of many of his friends, plus prolonged physical fatigue, have produced a reactive depression.
Well, lots of other fellows have been through this same thing. Maybe a pick and shovel and a little discipline would fix them up.
What does usually happen in these cases, Major?
Unless properly treated, suicide may occur. These gentlemen are medical officers, Sergeant, and they're interested in your story. Would you mind telling us what's the matter with you?
Well, sir, I just can't seem to get my strength back. I feel all in. They get me up for chow, but I can hardly make it to the line.
How long has this been going on?
Well, I noticed it first on the boat, coming to England.
When did you arrive from the States?
Oh, I don't think you understand, Lieutenant. This man has just arrived from Sicily. Did you see much action, Kasharsky?
Well, sir, we took a terrible shellacking at Randazzo. I lost a lot of my buddies there.
Did you stand up pretty well during that campaign?
Well, sir, except having the jitters once, I stood up as well as anybody else.
In what way do you feel your weakness?
Well, sir, it's all over. Mostly in my chest. It pains, I get out of breath. Maybe I got TB.
Oh, I'll bet 100 to 1 against that. This is also a depression, with accent on the physical rather than the emotional side as in the first case. Would you mind showing us your foot? It's all healed up, isn't it?
Yes, sir. They fixed it up in the surgical ward.
Tell us how it happened.
I was cleaning my gun in the bivouac area, and it went off, accidentally.
That was outside of Troina, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Didn't you try to save one of your men?
Oh, that. That was after we'd landed at Sicily. Our company had to retreat. One of our men couldn't keep up with us, and he was wounded. We lost sight of him. Another fellow and myself asked the CO if we couldn't go back and get him. We got him all right. As we started back, the Jerry spotted us and laid down a barrage of mortar fire that was like all hell breaking loose. We had to leave him behind.
What happened to him?
He died out there.
How soon after that did you have your accident?
About a week or so.
What shape were you in?
Jittery. Couldn't sleep much. I kept thinking about that day.
Thank you, Corporal.
Is that a common occurrence in depression, Major?
In the Battle of Botzen-Lutzen, there were 3,000 cases like that. The commander asked his chief surgeon to investigate. He found that they were self-inflicted.
Botzen-Lutzen? That's a German name. Who was the commander?
Napoleon. At ease, Peters. You're in the Air Corps, aren't you? Would you mind telling us about yourself?
No, sir. Don't mind a bit. I just refuse to fly.
Were you scared?
No, I don't think so, sir. See, I'm a waist gunner on a bomber. A bomber's crew is just like a football team. If one fellow keeps fumbling the ball all the time, a lot of good guys are on the losing team.
Tell us what happened that day you refused to fly.
They briefed us to go over Berlin that morning, and I was feeling terribly nervous and shaky. I hadn't slept for about 3 nights, and as we were walking over towards the ship, I felt the butterflies in my stomach worse than ever. So I just told them it didn't make any difference to me whether they busted me or not. A guy in that shape just shouldn't go up.
Do you always get butterflies when you go up?
No, I think that started when we were shot up over the drink. We ditched out there, and the pilot and the rear gunner were both killed. Took them about 3 days before they finally fished us out, and I don't think I've ever been the same since.
How do you feel about going back to flying?
Well, the 8th means a hell of a lot to me. When my nerves clear up, I'll do everything they want me to. But I think I'm washed out now. They'll never let me fly again.
Well, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. Sit down, Peters. You may call him a gold brick if you want to, but take a look at this. He's had 20 missions, and he's been decorated 4 times. This is another form of exhaustion known to the Air Corps as operational fatigue. We now come to an extremely common variety of the anxiety state. At first glance, this patient might appear to have Parkinson's disease, but in reality, he is suffering from exhaustion. Note the rhythmic tremor of his lips, of his hands, of his knees, of his feet. He was pinned down by enemy mortar fire and cut off in an observation post for the better part of 4 days. He was flown into us this morning from the combat area. Speech is difficult, so we won't burden him with questions. Treatment will begin immediately.
Yes, sir.
Here we have a variety of anxiety neurosis with visceral dysfunction. How is your stomach?
I vomited again, sir.
At ease, soldier. How long has this been going on?
It started when I was in action about 6 weeks ago.
Have you lost any weight?
About 30 pounds, so they tell me.
We'll soon make that up for you here. Any other complaints?
Well, everything seems torn to pieces. My heart beats awfully fast. My stomach, I just can't seem to get over my diarrhea.
How do you sleep?
It'd be all right if it weren't for those dreams.
Do you dream about anything in particular?
Terrible stuff. Barrage,